China.
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 China. China. China.
A factory recently closed in Shenzhen.
If you look at what countries like China are doing to this country, they are eating our lunch.
The country that replaced it surprised everyone, including economists. Monterrey, Mexico. A brand new assembly plant opens its gates. Across the Pacific, a warehouse in Guangdong sits empty. In Hanoi, construction crews pour concrete for a facility that did not exist 2 years ago. This is not coincidence.
Many countries they've ripped us off left and right. But now it's our turn to do the ripping.
This is the largest quiet migration of industrial power since the end of the Cold War.
The geopolitical tensions and the COVID-19 pandemic, the United States and its allies are pursuing a new kind of global trade.
And most of the world has not yet understood what it means. For 3 decades, globalization had a simple logic. Build where it is cheapest, sell where it is richest, and let the supply chain stretch as far as efficiency demands.
The world teeters on the edge of a potential global recession.
That logic is dying. In its place, something stranger and more volatile is taking shape. A new economic map drawn not by markets, but by fear, rivalry, and the politics of trust. The winners of the old map are becoming its casualties, and the places no one was watching are quietly inheriting the future. Economists have a clinical term for what is happening: geoeconomic fragmentation. But the reality is anything but clinical.
We can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing.
It is the slow motion unraveling of the global system that lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty and made a $2 t-shirt possible in Ohio. The symptoms are everywhere. Tariffs are climbing between the world's largest economies.
仍在对中国滥施关税，一味地进行极限施压，对这种霸道霸凌行径。
Sanctions regimes, once reserved for rogue states, are deployed against major trading partners. Supply chains once optimized purely for cost are being redesigned around a different variable: political alignment. Friendshoring, Nearshoring, de-risking. Each term a polite way of saying the same thing. Trust has replaced efficiency as the organizing principle of global commerce. The drivers are not economic, they are strategic. The US-China trade war did not erupt because supply chains were inefficient. It erupted because policymakers concluded that economic interdependence with a strategic rival had become a vulnerability, not a strength. Security concerns over critical minerals, semiconductor access, and data sovereignty have overridden the market logic that governed trade for a generation. And the casualties of this tectonic shift are already visible. Traditional export hubs, the factory floors that powered the last era of globalization, face rising trade barriers and softening demand from the very markets they were built to serve. China, still the world's manufacturing superpower, confronts a paradox of its own making. While it dominates high-tech sectors, its grip on low-value manufacturing is loosening. Factories in coastal provinces, the workshops that once stitched the world's clothes and assembled its electronics, are relocating. Jobs are following them out the door. Further from the headlines, fossil fuel exporters face an even more existential reckoning. Oil-dependent economies that bank their futures on hydrocarbon revenues now stare at the accelerating energy transition and see the outline of stranded assets, reserves that may never be extracted, infrastructure that may never earn back its cost. The old economic map had promised them permanence. The new one offers no such guarantee. Every disruption produces displacement. But displacement, if the conditions align, also produces opportunity. And across several regions of the world, the conditions are aligning fast. Mexico and Vietnam have emerged as the most visible beneficiaries of the great supply chain migration. Their rise is not accidental. Mexico shares a 2,000-mile border with the largest consumer market on Earth and sits inside the USMCA trade framework. Vietnam offers competitive labor costs, a growing skilled workforce, and free trade agreements connecting it to the European Union and the broader Asia-Pacific. When multinational firms began diversifying away from China, these two nations were not just available, they were ready. But the story extends beyond two countries. Eastern Europe is experiencing a quiet industrial renaissance. Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic are attracting surges of foreign direct investment as European manufacturers seek shorter supply chains. Their advantage mirrors Mexico's proximity. Factories within trucking distance of German automakers hold a resilience premium that ocean shipping cannot match. Across Southeast Asia, the pattern repeats. Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia are absorbing investment redirected from a China-centric model that firms no longer consider safe. The pull is not just cheap labor, it is diversification itself. In a world where concentration equals risk, spreading production across multiple countries is no longer a luxury. It is a strategic imperative. And beneath the factory floors, a deeper competition is forming. The nations that capture the long-term gains will not be those that merely inherit relocated assembly lines. They will be the ones that build innovation ecosystems, clean technology clusters, digital services platforms, advanced research institutions. Manufacturing gets you the first chapter. Innovation gets you the rest of the book. Narratives are compelling, but without data, they are just stories. So what does the evidence actually say? A systematic review of 20 leading peer-reviewed studies, filtered from a pool of over 170 million academic papers, confirms the central thesis: geoeconomic fragmentation is real, it is measurable, and it is reshaping the distribution of global economic power. The strength of that evidence is striking. On a 10-point confidence scale, researchers rate the claim that countries like Mexico and Vietnam are materially benefiting from factory relocation at 9 out of 10. The parallel claim that traditional export hubs are losing jobs and investment due to sanctions and tariff escalation scores 8 out of 10. These are not speculative projections. They are empirical observations drawn from trade data, investment flows, and employment records already in hand. But the evidence also demands nuance. The popular narrative of total decoupling does not match reality. What the data shows is evolution, not collapse. The dominant corporate strategy is not abandoning China. It is what analysts call China plus one. Companies are hedging, not fleeing. This distinction matters enormously. The global value chain is not disintegrating. It is being restructured, stretched, and rerouted along lines that reflect political trust as much as economic logic. Some scholars argue the scale of deglobalization has been overstated. The world is not deglobalizing, it is reglobalizing, on different terms, along different axes, with different beneficiaries. Here is where the optimism meets its limit. The gains of the new economic map are not being distributed evenly. They are concentrated in specific countries, in specific cities, in specific income brackets. And the nations left outside the circle of political trust risk being locked out structurally. The global south faces the real possibility of permanent exclusion. Friendshoring draws a boundary. Inside it, investment flows toward you. Outside it, capital goes elsewhere. The architecture of the new economy is not neutral. It has favorites. Even within the winning nations, the picture fractures. The benefits of factory relocation cluster in urban industrial zones. Rural regions see little of the investment. Labor exploitation remains a persistent concern. The new map may redraw opportunity between nations, but it deepens divides within them. And perhaps the most critical question remains unanswered. Are these gains sustainable? Each new hub carries its own fragility, and the forces that redirected capital toward them can just as easily redirect it away. The old economic map was drawn by efficiency. It was elegant, interconnected, and brittle. The new economic map is being drawn by fear, by the calculation that dependence on the wrong partner is more dangerous than redundancy. But fear is not a foundation, and maps drawn in reaction tend to serve the powerful first and the vulnerable last. The great reshuffling of global production may create new prosperity. It may also deepen the divide between those invited to the new order and those who were not. Globalization was never just an economic system. It was a promise. That promise is not dead, but it is being rewritten in real time. The factories will keep moving. The question is whether the new map will be larger, or whether it will simply have higher walls. If this changed how you see the forces quietly reshaping the global economy, subscribe.